Hello YouTube and welcome to this video. This video is about the engines, gasoline engines. Something interesting about them that I had a dream about when I woke up. I was thinking about it and I cannot stop thinking about it. The possibility of the potential possibility of making an engine run on very, very, very little fuel. Before I explain how and why, let's explain how the engine works. And the this part of the engine, let's say it's a intake where the gas or fuel and the air has been released into the piston's chamber. Okay, when the piston is in a downward motion or stroke, this intake valve opens up. Okay, as you can see, then once the piston is at its lowest peak of the downward stroke, piston intake valve closes and the piston starts to move in a upward stroke, causing the combustion in a chamber, combustion mixture of air and the fuel. When it reaches its max peak of upward stroke, what happens is the spark plug ignites the fuel. Then the small explosion occurs as you can see, causes the force, explosion force inside the chamber, piston's chamber, causing the piston to move in a downward stroke, right? Alright, so the key word is force. Alright, force. So the air and the fuel, okay, go into the intake, through the valve, when it opens, intake's valve, and when the valve closes, then piston starts to move on an upward stroke. When it reaches its peak, upward stroke's peak, the spark plug ignites the fuel and causes the explosion, causes the force, enough force to push the piston in a downward stroke. Okay, now there's a push. Okay, now we can call it a push force, or even better, a pressure force. Pressure is being pretty much the chamber ends up with so much pressure in it for it to push the piston in a downward motion. When it reaches its downward peak, the exhaust valve opens, alright, releases the burned fuel and the air, pretty much the exhaust. Goes back where goes the exhaust, or pressured exhaust goes out into the air or atmosphere. What about, here's an idea, what about if we could introduce or recycle or harvest the same pressured exhaust back into the piston's chamber? Okay, when it's at its upward stroke peak or highest peak on an upward stroke to push the piston back in a downward motion. When it's at its downward motion, at its lowest downward motion, again the exhaust valve opens and releases that exhaust pressure back into, let's say, on a compartment here maybe, or a tank or something that contains pressure, that can harvest that pressure inside this container back into the piston. Alright, from the exhaust pipe into this tank container that can be pressurized back into the chamber, piston's chamber, when it's at its highest peak, to push it back down. You could eliminate, then you could shut down this valve, or well, you don't have to. Well, actually, you will have to, because I believe this valve opens when this piston is at its highest peak. This valve opens, so this thing will have to be somehow shut, closed. The fuel could be shut down, even the spark plugs could be shut down. But then that's so much complicated, right? When you think about it. I mean, something like this could work. Why? Because I am not thinking about the force, what engineers would call it. I'm thinking about the pressure. I'm thinking about the pressure here. Alright? This is what I'm thinking about. Pressure. Now, let's eliminate fuel. Let's eliminate the air and the intake. Let's eliminate the spark plugs. Let's introduce another, oh, I'm sorry, that's not it. Another tank here, which contains air pressure, or air pressurized tank. Air pressurized tank, alright? Air. Okay? Pressurized air that will have enough pressure to push, alright, the piston in a downward motion when it's in an upward, when it's at its highest peak in an upward stroke, the piston, to push it down. Then when it's on a downward stroke, its lowest peak, for this exhaust valve to open, to be released back into, let's say, another compartment that can contain air pressure. Alright, another air pressurized compartment or tank. And from here, let's eliminate this. From this tank to be sent, pressure to be sent back into this tank. Alright. And then from there, again, when the piston is at its highest peak, for this tank to release air pressure back into the piston. And there you go. Something like this could work, and your engine would run on air. Thank you for watching. Think about it. Have an open mind. I do. So thank you for watching again, and always stop by. You never know what I have for you.